All right, here is the Aptomo Beacon Plus kit installation video for the capsule style inserts. This will allow you to install any 2x3 light into your ARB bumper that uses this type of light in the bumper pocket. Note that this doesn't apply, not this guy, just this guy. I'm going to get you to pay attention to this entire video because there is specific orientations on how these things are installed and special notes that you're going to need to do. Special notes you're going to need to pay attention to. There are some specifics. It is a little bit tedious to get this set up for the first time because of the adjustability for the different types of lights that are available. It saves me from having to make multiple brackets and kits to be able to fit different lights. So what you're going to get when you open the kit, you're going to see a left and a right bracket. You're going to see some hardware for mounting the bezels and the support brackets. You're also going to replace your nylon clips that are stock with these metal clips. It is optional. I've used them with the stock nylon clips, but these are there to replace them if you choose, if you prefer metal. They are a bit of a pain in the butt to get out. You'll see in the next segment when we go to the truck. But these clips are fairly common and they reuse the factory screws that come out when you remove the factory lights. You need to keep those, don't lose them. If you need to replace them, they're just a regular number 6. I think they're about 3/4 of an inch long or 1 inch long. You're also going to see 2 gaskets. These are optional gaskets just in case you need to close the gap to the bumper a little bit more. Sometimes I found on a few of the installations, if the little mounting tabs get bent towards the face of the bumper and they close in distance, it will actually open the gap between this face and the bumper. And sometimes you just need a little bit of extra something to close it up. So that's what those gaskets are for. You don't need to use them if they fit tight. So if you're having trouble with a gap between the bezel and the bumper, you can just give this a little twist or push back so you don't scratch your powder coat. And you can just push this in this direction ever so slightly until it clears. What's happening is it's contacting right here. And this is meant to just fit. So as soon as you push it back a little bit, it'll eliminate the gap between the bumper. Now looking at the actual bezels, these trim pieces that kind of make everything look nice and clean and pretty, you need to have the logo facing down. It's very important that you do. Also, the nub where we have our fastener, this goes to the inside or inboard towards the center of the vehicle. This little clip here is what goes to the outside. When we install them, they slide in and clip down, and you will put in a single fastener to hold the whole thing together. This is what takes a little bit of time to get used to. And you also need to make sure that when you install these and you have them somewhat loose to adjust, that there is room for this to slide over the bracket. If it doesn't slide over the bracket and you force it, you can break this tab off. I've done my best to reinforce it. They're pretty sturdy. This is now glass fiber reinforced ASA. It is UV stable and quite rigid because of the glass fiber reinforcement. It has quite a nice finish. These are fairly tough. I've tested a few of these. But we'll go through some specifics to show you, in case you do have trouble with this, there's some ways to just work with it, and you should be able to get them to install pretty cleanly and nicely. Another note I want to make here is that the cutout, the oval here, is not identical. If you try to install them with the logo up, it won't physically fit in the bumper opening. They are not the same radius. You can kind of see it here. One's longer and one's shorter. They only have a singular orientation. Same goes with the gaskets. You can kind of see that the shape is a bit different. And if you're using the gasket should just drop on with the shiny side towards the outside. If it doesn't drop on, let's put it upside down, it doesn't quite fit, right? On the bracket itself, your light will bolt here. What I suggest you do before we go to the truck is install your light kind of like this. Install your light and loosely put it there before you start feeding it in the back. If you're doing it one step at a time, it's a little bit more difficult. The other thing I'll suggest to you is that install all your hardware when you put this on the back of the bumper. Install your hardware and put it just tight enough that you can adjust this up and down, but if you let go, it won't fall down. It won't slide down on the back of the bumper. When you have it tight enough, that will allow this to kind of sit where you put it, where you finish making the final tightening and adjustments. These nubs, these little rubber nubs, go here. The last part is these little mounting tabs. They'll basically just go together with a standard bolt and a washer. I like to remove the washers on the top. This is just an old mechanics trick because they're serrated, and you go to put the bottom washer and nut. This is all M6 hardware, by the way. And this is going to sit here. It has some room to wiggle side to side if you need to adjust. So when you go to install, what you're going to see on the inside of the bumper is this hooks around and in. You slide it into the hole and it will fit just like so. And then you leave this hardware loose as well, and this will actually allow you to install and adjust the height. Let's head over to the truck and we can look at the rest of the installation. You're going to need to save these two screws that come out. We're going to reuse them. Okay, this next step is somewhat tricky. Two little plastic inserts that sit right here. I'll get another shot of those in a second so we can see. There's two little inserts here. To remove those, there's two tabs we have to depress. You'll need a small pick or something like this. Flat-bladed screwdriver will also work. You can just depress the tabs inward towards the center and push it out. We're going to install another clip here in a second. Here's the little nylon insert that comes out of that square hole. This is still useful. Don't throw it away, just in case you need something for the future. But we're going to install a metal clip. We're going to slip this little metal U-nut over the hole now. One thing to note with these clips is that they're just the same size as the thickness of the metal that we are installing them on. So if you find that they slip down, you can grab a pair of pliers and just squeeze them at the widest part here a little bit, just to make them fit a bit tighter so they don't move around. It's handy. Just pay attention to the orientation. The flat side with the larger hole goes inward, and it has to slide over top of the square opening, just like that. Okay, and then once we get that other one out, we're just going to slide in the other clip. Okay, and then we'll just step over to the bench for a second here, and what we're going to do is set up the light loosely on top of the bracket as well as the mounting tab. So here's just, as an illustration, a 3D printed bracket, just so you can see it a little easier. The one thing to do is to just line up the screw with your finger on it here and slip it into the clip. I also suggest you can leave the screws slightly loose, just so you have some up and down adjustment. Okay, the next step is going to be sliding in the bezel. This is a slightly older, slightly dirtier version, but the concept is the same. We have our anchor point here that's going to screw to the bracket that you set up on the inside on the left of the light here, depending on what side you're on. But this is where you use your 10mm fastener to make the final connection point between this and the actual bumper. First thing you need to do is align this tab. This tab is going to slot in over top of the aluminum bracket we just added, and this is what's going to hold it in. So when we install, we're going to come in at an angle and then clip in. Just like that. It catches and then folds in. So push it over and in. Sometimes you have to click them in place a little bit. Don't force it, but just a good firm bit of pressure. You should be able to pull it over enough to slip the whole thing in. It should fit fairly snugly. Okay, and the last step here is, after installing the bezel here, we're just going to adjust the light to the proper lighting position. Just note that you can move the light up and down a little bit to allow it to tilt down if you needed to.
This is designed with a bit of drop in it already, so you should be able to square this right up to the face of this, and it will kind of already point down a little bit. If you don't like that amount of if you don't like that adjustment, what I suggest you do is leave the light ever so slightly loose, but still firm enough that you can move it up and down without bending the bracket. That is important. And then the other thing you probably want to do is just leave it loose in the track so it can slide back and forth, and you can kind of get the position right. That's why we left those two screws on either side here loose, and then we'll just get this centered up.